This is not an inner city disease. This is not a disease of the brain that is associated with any one socioeconomic class. This disease affects everybody equally. And if you have the correct chemical imbalance in your brain and you are exposed to that drug, you are a setup to become addicted to whatever drug you're abusing.
Oh, so you're ready. You just gotta fall down and sit on your butt. Ready? Ring around, a pocket full of ashes, ashes. We all fall down. Now you're gonna go down. No, you all fall down. It's Joe, Daddy. It's Joe. I don't know what game you guys will play. Oh, you can go game.
About 1 a.m. in the morning, my oldest son called me, actually texted me, uncontrollably upset that another one of our friends and neighbors had passed away from heroin. And it shook me up really bad because that made the 9th person that I knew pass since my son Bryan, who passed from heroin January 27th, 2012.
I wanted to do this because my stepdaughter was addicted to heroin, and I want to do anything that I can to help other children or adults try to battle this.
I think the awareness needs to get out there that it is truly an epidemic in Waterford, this heroin problem.
Well, I was a heroin addict for many years and a methadone addict. And now that I am clean, I just want to pass on the message that it is possible.
I lost my son a year ago. And the first questions that go through your mind is how and why. So I got on the computer and I started doing a lot of research. And when I discovered the devastation, the reality of what was going on, I thought something needs to be done. And so I decided to speak up and speak out. And try to remove some of the stigma that's surrounded with the disease of addiction.
Since getting sober, I've been looking to find somewhere where I can give back other than the NA and AA fellowships and the 12-step fellowships. We got to find stuff that's outside of that, you know, because it's not necessarily, if I go into these meetings and I get my therapy, but how am I helping the community as a whole outside of this?
Actually, I'm the granddaughter, the daughter, the mother, the ex-wife, the grandmother, the sister, the friend of addicts, many addicts. And I just feel that it's important for me to share my experience with other people. We need to spread the word. And it's important that people know that addiction doesn't just affect the poor or the uneducated. I mean, it affects everyone. It doesn't have any boundaries. And I think people should be aware. It's become an epidemic and it's taking over our children. It's taking away our children.
Prescription drugs, even more than heroin, are the leading cause of death in all of our communities, just not in Waterford, not in Michigan, not in the United States, but in the entire world. It's even surpassed motor vehicle deaths and suicides combined. So, you know, by the time we see individuals in the courtroom, whether it's for retail fraud or a much more serious offense, as often the case may be, we can often link that back to the addiction to prescription drugs and or heroin.
Substance abuse is not a new problem, but heroin and the heroin that we see on the streets these days is developing. Well, I wouldn't say developing, it's already here in a dramatic way, and it's in a dangerous way. The potency and the availability is a threat that I think people need to be aware of.
The thing that a lot of people have to realize is that being a brain disease, it is a chemical imbalance in the brain, not very different than any other mental illness caused by a chemical imbalance.
Statistically, 4 out of 5 people who use heroin became addicted to heroin by virtue of a prescription drug addiction and dependence.
He started with prescription pain pills, Vicodin, I'm certain of it.
As with everyone, it starts off with prescription drugs. And it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what school you go to. Addiction isn't, you know, it's not racist, it's not, you know, towards one economic group or another. So it affects everybody, and it mostly starts off with prescription pills. And you know, you start off with, you know, your Vicodins, your Percocets. They're not strong enough, so you go to your Oxycontins, and they're very, very expensive. So we weren't doing those for a long, you know, we were snorting them, and then we learned that heroin was cheaper, a lot cheaper, and so we ended up snorting heroin. And you know, you think to yourself, well, at least I'm not shooting it, and then before long, what do you know, you're shooting it.
What I believed to be is it started with prescription pain pills for Bryan, Vicodin, and he liked probably how they made him feel outside of taking the pain away, masked feelings that he had that he couldn't identify, and just made him feel better. And he started with prescription pain pills, Vicodin, I'm certain of it.
So we're seeing more and more situations where someone maybe start with a prescription drug on a legitimate basis. Maybe it's pain management, sports injury for younger kids. We see that a lot. And then, you know, sometimes, you know, mom or dads, they may have back surgery or something going on, stress relief, or it starts out as a medicinal thing. And then there's a segue point where the prescription ends, the doctor says, you know, it's enough, time to move on, whatever the case may be, and they still want that kind of connection to that relief or that whatever they're seeking. And that's when sometimes it becomes a gateway drug, because they no longer have the access to the pills, and they find when they go out to try to buy them on the street, some of the pills in particular are maybe $50 to $80 a pill for the real high-end, you know, Oxycontins, things like that. And they can get, you know, a bundle of heroin for $10. And so then it becomes an economic choice in some respects for what they think might be a similar kind of feeling.
We have a tremendous epidemic in our community right now. And if you look at the statistics, 2% of high school students are addicted to opiates. And then carry that on into adulthood, we got 2 to 5% of adults addicted to opiates. And the major opiates that are being abused in the area are not illicit drugs. It's not heroin. It's prescription medication that's being taken inappropriately.
There's such a fine line between prescription drugs, making that jump to heroin. It's so fine that I don't believe the addict or the family or anyone is aware of that. Prescription drugs are assumed to be okay. They're from a doctor. It starts off innocently enough, and before you know it, they've crossed that line. And that's probably something I would like to tell the public, that number one, don't ever make the mistake of thinking that it can't happen to you.
If 9 whales washed ashore somewhere, the feds would be all over it. If there was a E. coli breakout And one person a day in Oakland County was dying from the age of 17 to 25, like they are right now, they'd be doing something about it.
It's pretty sad that they're still dropping, you know, nothing's really changing out there. Opiate use has gone up 300% since 2001, and that's just in the suburbs. So, and we're talking about prescription narcotics, we aren't talking about heroin. If you want to talk about heroin, it's ungodly, the epidemic that we have.
Emotionally is the reason why I used heroin. You know, whether you have a good day or a bad day, you're gonna shoot dope. Whether you have money or you don't money, you're gonna shoot dope. And financially, I sold drugs is how I supported my habit. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have done. So that's what turned into a tailspin of me later facing 30 years in prison. And that was my first intervention, was with the courts.
Appearance-wise, weight loss, no color to the skin, dark circles under the eyes. You know, you look like a junkie. And not only that, but behavior. Behavior is a huge aspect on, you know, how it affects you. My family would wonder why I'd be, you know, sleeping on the couch during family functions instead of, you know, playing with the kids, or I would be very, you know, you think you would be, you know, calm and relaxed when you're on drugs, but it's the opposite. You're very up and down in your emotions.
I had an ex-boyfriend go to prison, another ex-boyfriend do a year in jail. I did also. Lost our apartments, dogs, jobs, pretty much anything and everything that somebody has, I lost. Saved my life, somehow.
Oh, I've had things stolen, precious things that I would never, ever be able to get back. I bought things back from pawn shops only to bring home and have taken again and then buy it back again, to the point where I just stopped buying them back. And I stopped having them around. So I would say that it's affected. I worked for years, and I think most of my check went to my addicts.
Once I found out that my son had this problem, you're afraid of everything. You're afraid when your phone rings. You're afraid when you go to bed at night. You're afraid to close your eyes. You're afraid that when they don't respond to your phone calls right away. You're afraid when they don't text you back quick enough. And there's a lot of fear involved with that.
For someone, if you see somebody that's had dramatic changes in their behavior, maybe alcohol, maybe heroin, it may be some kind of substance abuse, it might be depression, it might be bullying, but it's something's going on in their life that really has got them in a vulnerable situation where intervention has to happen quickly, where you have to kind of work together. What's going on in your life? Why have you completely changed friends? You no longer care about things you used to be passionate about, sports or reading. Why is your attire, your appearance changed so dramatically? Why are you, acting differently? All of these are signs that something's going on, and it may not be heroin. It might be they're being bullied. It might be they're extremely depressed. We know that we have a high number of tragic suicides, especially among teenagers and even adults. We probably handle a suicide or two almost every day, unfortunately, at the sheriff's office. So something's going on, and that's the best time for friends and family to go, hey, I'm going to get right up there and figure it out, because sometimes it can take time to develop, and sometimes it happens almost immediately.
You'll see significant and characteristic personality changes. People who are very good students will suddenly become C and D students. People who are affiliated or taking part in regular school activities and student council will suddenly stop doing that for quote-unquote unknown reasons. And what gradually happens is that the drugs take over as the major recreation in their life.
When you start using, here's the first thing that happens is you compromise who and what you are to to get more of what you want. And with that, you become this person, because what you are kind of defines your character to other people. And it's hard. You become stigmatized yourself. You actually become the dope fiend junkie. When you think junkie, I'm sure you don't think of puppy dogs and lollipops. It's more, dirty needles.
I got out of the denial that it was really happening, and I used everything I had in my life and then some to bring help to him in treatment programs, support, finances, any kind of help I could be. I realized that I probably was enabling him and not helping him, so it disrupted my whole life.
In 1995, a lot of things changed in our society. I refer to it in my presentations with the Stepman Group as the perfect storm. And Congress went ahead and made it permissible for pharmaceutical companies to begin advertising. And so that was when we started to see the constant, there's a pill for everything. There's a pill to make your hair grow. There's a pill to make you thin. There's, a pill for everything. And so that really began to shift our societal norms. It made it okay to take a pill. And you get those pills from your doctor, who's supposed to be a trusted individual as well. So it sort of completed that issue. Furthermore, also around 1995, as part of this perfect storm, we also began to see that there was some mismarketing. Purdue Pharmaceuticals actually marketed one of the first big prescription pain drugs, OxyContin, which also came out in and around 1995, as non-addictive. So here everyone was led to believe that it was okay to use OxyContin. We're getting pain relief. That's a good thing, especially when you're uncomfortable. So not only did Purdue Pharmaceuticals, who ended up paying $600 million in a lawsuit for fraudulently advertising OxyContin and some of the other pain medications, start to occur, but we also then had the OxyContin come in. OxyContin at the time was very highly addictive and very easy to crush. Very few teens and young adults will actually inject, all right? Once they get to the injection phase, it's pretty severe. So what they were doing is they're crushing the OxyContin and they're inhaling it, typically. And OxyContin at the time is an extended release tab, so you're getting something that's supposed to go over a 6 or 8 hour period in one fell swoop, increasing its addictive potential.
And he came to me in August of 2013 and told me that he had a drug problem, and that I needed to take his car keys. And at that time, I couldn't understand it. I was pretty much blindsided. I couldn't understand what could be so bad that he couldn't trust himself with his keys. And he told me that it was heroin. And even then, I still could not wrap my mind around that. It's something you never think, there's no way. My child knew, he understood. There's no way that he could ever do that. And I lived in that denial for 2 or 3 months at least, if not longer. I still haven't got that sorted out yet.
I really think that pharmaceutical narcotics are the gateway drug to heroin. It definitely was a gateway for me. At 12 years old, I was in a car accident, bit the dashboard, reconstructive surgery, Percocet, Vicodin. Now I'm a 12-year-old kid.
People don't think it's going to happen in their family. It can happen in any family. And I think kids should be educated very young to understand that the harms that it can have on you.
Prescription drugs, and at that time it was just kind of fun, at first, until you realize you're in trouble. Heroin was the same thing. I was told that you'll feel like a warm, fuzzy cupcake, and who didn't want to feel like that? And before I knew it, I was in and out of rehabs, and friends dying, boyfriends in prison, losing all my stuff.
She was addicted for a little over 10 years. And she, it just totally, it almost ruined our family.
It takes away your life. It wears you out. And I've done things in the time that I've been around addicts that I never ever expected to do in my life. I never thought growing up that this would be what my life was going to be about.
There is no average heroin addict, there is no average community, there is no profile. It happens in all communities. It happens to all races and sexes and economic strata. It happens to good and bad families. There, is no one particular profile. I would say one of the biggest spiking areas in terms of mere numbers or usage would be 17 to 24 would probably be one of our biggest problem areas in terms of the biggest spike in use, right down into teenage years and high school. That's a very troubling trend, but we're seeing quite a bit of that.
Addiction impacts the entire family unit, and it's human nature to deny that there's a problem and to close your eyes, hide your head in the sand, and hope everything is going to get better. With the disease of addiction, we can't do that.
I seriously traumatized them, demonized them. I broke them. My grandmother, I can remember one of my worst things was having my grandmother drive me down to Detroit, calling my guy, meeting him, and shooting drugs behind my grandmother's back.
I basically lived on my own. It's almost like I had two kids when I was really only supposed to be raising one, and I was supposed to be raising it with my husband. Lots of lies, you name it, I've dealt with it.
I have to say that I was very, very lucky. They're very, very supportive. I'm one of the lucky ones to have a supportive family. They were hurt, and like Jeannie said, this was the hardest thing that, and my mom and dad have told me this, that they've ever had to deal with all three of us kids. I have a brother and a sister, and also with my mom. My mom had cancer, and this was the hardest thing that they've had to deal with in the family, because it was just 8 years of complete chaos and turmoil, and them not knowing if I was going to be alive the next day, or waking up and is this the day that she's going to die, or they didn't know where I was. They didn't know. I mean, they were very supportive, but at the same time, it was very, very, the house was very, very tense because of it. I mean, you don't have the same relationship you have anymore. I mean, it's there, but it's very, very distant. It's like you're in your own little world, your own little bubble. Therefore, your family members can't really reach you, and because you're a doll, you're blank, you're a zombie. So it completely affected my family relationship.
How we did not know, how her dad did not know, I don't know, but the roller coaster just went. Oh, it was terrible. It was a constant locking your doors to your bedrooms.
I have 2 children, and due to this, I sent them over to Canada with my ex-husband. Pretty much gave up my rights as a mother, and I'm not really too close with my family. As hard as it is for me to say as being Italian, but my mother was the worst enabler in my life.
My mom and I had no relationship. My sister and I had no relationship. We didn't get along. If we saw each other, we fought. Stole from them. Now my mom and I are best friends. I'm with her every single day. But then my family was completely just torn apart.
I've overcome a lot of things. I've learned how to deal with situations. I've learned how to not enable people, and not just the addicts in my life, but others, people that I work with, my family. I've learned a lot of things. I go to meetings. I go to 12-step meetings. I go to support groups. I'm online with several different support groups, so many of them that I probably could just stay online all the time just to read all the postings and deal, and talk to people. It brought me down, it weakened me for a long time, but I think at this point now I'm a stronger person than I was before, and I have a greater appreciation for life and a greater understanding of how powerful addiction is.
I would tell you I'm definitely not the same person. I honestly really went into a black hole for a good time after Bryan passed. Not for the first month. I think for the first month I was in denial. And then when it finally hit me, it put me in a place I can't ever imagine living to tell about.
At first, it's an out-of-body type experience. You're like in a fog. The world seems way too big for you, and like something's just not right with it. You're afraid to go to familiar places that you once seen your son at or went with your son to. And then as time goes on, you try to rationalize it in your mind because you know you have to go on. But I don't know, it's really indescribable. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions. You'll be going along and you're thinking, okay, I'm getting better. And then wham, you find yourself, 6, 7 months, 8 months into it going, this really happened. And I know that sounds maybe not normal or not, but there's nothing about this. Losing a child, it's normal.
Like the first thing that pops in my head is being in Pontiac, and there was 3 of us in the car, and we were all doing our stuff, and my friend, I gave him all his stuff, and I usually had to monitor his, and I wasn't paying attention that day, and I turned around, I looked behind me, and he was head up, eyes OD'd. And I had never seen like that before, and I had my phone in my hand, and I went and pushed 911, and the guy that was driving the car got out of the car, unzipped his pants, threw ice down his pants, and he came to. And there was another experience that we were down in Detroit on 6 Mile and DeQuinder, and he had OD'd in the car, and I had to walk him up and down 6 Mile.
So the worst moment out of this whole thing was the day that we hadn't seen her for 2 months. And she showed up at the house, sitting on the porch, and it was 10 o'clock at night. It was dark out, it was summer. And her brother walked by, and she had her hood up, and he walked right by her, didn't even know her. And she said, hey. He said, who are you? She was beat up. She was totally going through a withdrawal, freaking out, and that was the worst moment because she got angry when I wouldn't let her stay there. And I told her, no, I'm sorry, you have to go. We kicked you out for a reason. You're obviously high, and it's not over, and you need to leave. And she wouldn't go, and I had to call the police on her.
I went through a lot, losing jobs. When my ex went to prison, I thought that was rock bottom for me, and I went to outpatient facility. I started on Suboxone, and everyone thought, okay, this has got to be it. Like, he's doing 9 to 30 years in prison, and I was in the car with him. So you would think that I would learn, but that wasn't it. It wasn't till, I lost my job and had detectives coming over to the house after living in a car and having nothing. when I finally went to jail, and it was my first time ever being arrested, and they said my sentencing guidelines were like 17 to 37 months, and I was facing prison time. And I went from a straight A student working at a law office in this big house on a lake to facing prison.
Was a combination of family and friends support, but Bryan's hope kind of pushed me to do what I needed to do.
She went right down to the methadone clinic. She had heard about it. She didn't know about it, but she had heard about it, and she went straight down to the methadone clinic, and it was amazing. She felt fine. She didn't feel like she had to go run out and get the heroin. She didn't have the cravings. She didn't, you know, she got a job. She got married. They got their own place. She got a car. I mean, she got her life. And she had lost everything, everything. She had not a stitch of clothes that she, I mean, they were all stolen from her, or she'd knotted out and people would take her purse.
I was living in Pontiac, and I've always had nice things, unfortunately, from selling drugs. And I don't know, I looked around and I was like, wow, this is just, I had a beat up neon, you know, I looked in the mirror and I just couldn't recognize who I was. I mean, I finally just had enough, and I picked up the phone, I called Pace, and I told them I needed help.
I never lost the support of my family. You know, my mom was there with me when I went into jail, and, you know, she didn't bail me out, but she made sure I had, you know, money, and she was at all my court dates and sending me cards, and, you know, they were supporting me. And I think I just had enough time to sit there and see all the other people that were around me. I did 3 months in maximum security in Oakland County, and I spent Christmas, you know, in maximum security. And I kind of had enough sober time to realize I didn't want to do that, that wasn't me, that I had something to live for, and I didn't want to have that revolving door, you know, in and out, over to prison. I knew this was my chance.
Well, you know, it depends on the age. There's different kinds of services and things related to the age. For example, we have youth assistance in Oakland County. It's a very unique program. It's partnered up with the probate and the youth kind of courts, and they do a great job, and we have programs with them, and they have programs with parents and counselors, and so that's a resource. You've got different sobriety courts. You've got certainly a plethora of alcohol and substance abuse counselors and facilities right here in Oakland County. You've got a great number of charities that, you know, try to help and intervene with substance abuse or other kinds of addictive behavior. So there is quite a few things. You know, you're not alone. There are people that will advise and, you know, try to do what they can to help, but you got to reach out. You got to ask the question. You say, boy, I'm not sure what's going on here. And somebody probably does because of their experience and knowledge, and they may be able to help you.
Look for loose pills, look for empty pill bottles that don't have someone's name on it. You know, be an investigative individual. We're not here to be friends with our kids, especially when they're young. We're here to parent them. And when in doubt, you can always go to a drug testing agency and ask for a drug test. And I recommend that you do that over an over-the-counter test because it will miss the opioid. Furthermore, there's a lot of resources out there to the public. Bryan's Hope is certainly an excellent resource. Families Against Narcotics is an excellent resource. Radio is an excellent resource. Anything like that, you know, where you can go and you can not only get education on the subject, but you can most certainly find support. And that support is what is very, very critical when you do finally identify that your child is in danger. And it's important that you know that you're not on an island and that there are many, many individuals who are suffering and enduring the same dilemma and can be of assistance to you.
10% of women, 20% of men are born with a genetic predisposition to get addicted to mind-altering substances. Sweating, craving, goose-flenched, diarrhea, mood swings that are so severe that they cannot function or carry out their normal activities of daily living. And characteristically, someone who is addicted to opiate medications is always attempting to stop, but they can't because they get so sick. And the reason they'll try, for instance, to take a little bit less of their Vicodin or a little bit less of their heroin, but they can't control the amount of withdrawal they're going through. Now, there are two medications, Suboxone and methadone. When we put the patient into treatment, we start the patient on either their Suboxone or their methadone, which totally eliminates the withdrawal symptomatology and the craving. We simultaneously place the patient into intensive counseling, which entails individual cognitive behavioral therapy and group therapy.
Now that I got clean, my family, my friends, they see a complete difference. I mean, and also I haven't been this happy in for as long as I can remember being clean.
For me, sobriety is like swimming upstream, because I'm constantly fighting myself and the current when, you know, I can turn around and float with it so much easier, but I'm trying to get to a destination.
Like with methadone, it's a double-edged sword. With methadone, initially saved my life, but there comes a point in sobriety to where enough is enough. And when, you know, I found myself getting ready to go to college and I was taking my GED and I was nodding out in front of the computer, I'd had enough. And I will honestly say you have to have a strong heart and a strong mind, but it is possible. It is very possible, and it's so worth it. I'm so grateful to be off methadone and heroin. I can't even explain the fruits of sobriety. I celebrate every single day.
I ended up getting work release when I was in jail, and what was funny was that I was in jail and I was like the happiest person you'd ever see. I mean, I was like walking through there, I was like nice to everybody, and I was just a happy person. I was going to church, and I was just so thankful for these little simple things, from going from, you know, maximum security when you're doing all the, you know, weird jail makeup and all that stuff, to going over and having, you know, a bunk with real sheets, and, you know, it really makes you appreciate little things in life. So I've just tried to hold on to that attitude about how much worse everything can always be, but there's always a way out.
Every family is different. For our family, it was the tough love. She did not agree with the tough love. Of course, she didn't, but we felt that that was the only thing that was going to help her. And not have a roof over her head, not have, how is she going to get her next meal, how is she going to get her drugs. She needed to figure that out on her own. We were not going to be the enablers. And that, to me, that was huge. The enabling will help continue your child to be a heroin addict and could possibly kill them.
There's two polarities, and they're both just as deadly. You can love them too much, or you can shun them like the Amish. And either way, you shun them you're going to shun them, and then you're not going to know where they are, what they're doing. You're going to worry sick. You probably have a heart attack before they die.
Right.
Now, because you're going to worry about it. Now, you're going to love them to death. Then you're going to, oh, you're sick, honey? Oh, it's okay. I know. You're going to get better tomorrow. Here's another 20. We'll get you better tomorrow. And they will enable them and love them to death, because there might not be a tomorrow. That's a problem. My mom, at the end of mine here, she was making my obit. She was calling my friends, seeing who wanted to talk at my funeral. I mean, I am that hopeless addict. I am the guy that you would look at and say, that dude is never going to get clean. That guy's never going to stop using.
Until you become clean, and then it's an everyday battle. So you need to get involved in AA, NA, and just stay on the positive side, get into church, and hope for the best.
People might disagree with this, but I think interventions are not a good idea because the addict often does feel attacked. Sit down with them in a very, very calm voice and tell them what you know.
Well, I think the best advice that I can give is to stay busy. Live your life. Don't live your addict's life. It's so easy to get hooked in to, you know, this. It's like a dance. You know, you can't step off the dance floor. If you stay busy, if you go to meetings, if you get support, talk to people, get a sponsor. I really am a big promoter of Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. I think they're fantastic. Try different groups. When I first found out that my daughter was an addict, they tell the addict to go to 90 meetings in 90 days when they get out of rehab. And I went to 90 meetings in 90 days, and then 90 more meetings in 90 more days. I just immersed myself in Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. And there were times when, just like an addict, you know, I considered myself very much like the addict, like this poem, this story is. I was so addicted to my addict that I didn't take care of myself. And I can't stress enough how important it is for you to take care of yourself.
Number one, don't ever make the mistake of thinking that it can't happen to you.
Like, you know, as hard as you chase the dope man, you have to chase your recovery harder. And I mean everything. If that doesn't come first, everything else will fall apart. And that's the honest to God truth.
The most important advice I would have is to reach out to people, because there are so many people that want to help, like Bryan's Hope, and, you know, family members, and, you know, I'm sure, you know, people have friends that care about them, and there are resources, so you have to look into what resources that are available for you to take advantage of.
The biggest thing is to just stop, just take a time out, you know, stop fighting everybody, just pay attention to where you're at and realize that people do care about you, people do love you. You think that they're against you, but they're not. You know, your families, everybody, when they're trying to get you into rehab or an intervention, they're not doing it to be mean. People are doing it to care.
The plague that you need to distance yourself from, that it's a sickness that takes over our loved ones, and they need help and compassion and a voice, and they're silenced, and more are going to be silenced. And just speak up, speak out any way you can.
You look in their pack of cigarettes, and if any of their cotton filter is missing, a little piece of it, that's a sign that they're shooting up heroin, because they have to use that cotton in order to shoot it up. Another sign to look for is pieces of paper, probably about that big, that are folded up in a very specific way. They'll have like several folds in them, and it could be lined paper, paper from a magazine is what I used a lot, but a lot of times they come in lottery tickets. For some reason, drug dealers use lottery tickets. And another thing is bottle caps with, it might not even have residue on them, but just like random bottle caps lying around their room, that might be a sign that I would take precaution with for your child using.
So you have to know what to look for. And the problem with opioid addiction dependence is that the symptoms, which again often begin as teenagers, 90% of addicts become addicts when they're teens, okay? So a lot of the signs and symptoms of opioid addiction or dependence looks just like common teenager behavior. Asking for money, restless sleeping, not sleeping, irritability, you know, things that relate to not getting enough sleep, pink, you know, around the eyes, different things like that. So, you know, you have to really be snoopy with it. You have to really take a look. You have to keep track of your prescription medications. Certainly if you have extra prescriptions laying around the house, you need to dispose of them properly so that your teens don't have access to them. You need to go through your teens' stuff. You need to go ahead and go in. You need to look for the bottle caps. You need to look for the syringes. You need to look for the gum wrappers. That oftentimes is where they put the heroin.
Well, we very much want to be involved and help. If you've got a situation you're aware of and you think we can be assistive, we're happy to. We've got a lot of experts. We're one of the largest sheriff's offices in America. We've got 1,300 men and women that work here and about 900 sworn. And we have a lot of experts in a lot of different things, and we've probably dealt with whatever problem you're facing, so don't feel alone. If we can help, that's what we're here for.
We've lost a lot of children, a lot of loved ones, but there's still hope for people out there, and I think that we should try to keep that and remember that it's not a hopeless situation, that sometimes the person that you think would never go into recovery is the one that does it and stays in it. So always hope.
You don't have to die. You do not have to end up dead. Your parents don't have to cry for you. You can end up a survivor like me. I am so blessed to be able to tell you these things. I thought I'd be dead too. I didn't think I'd push 30. And I'm 37 years old, clean almost 4 years.
This is a program that funds addicts, alcoholics, whatever your drug of choice is, for people that either don't have money, no insurance. It goes anywhere from inpatient, outpatient, methadone, which is what I was on, and I'm currently off methadone, 3 years clean. Counseling, I mean, whatever the addict, anything the addict needs, they're at your beck and call. I mean, I was in the methadone clinic within 24 hours.
I would want people to know is that there are resources out there, very excellent resources, Oakland County Health Department, and along with some of the other resources that I've named. But the one thing that we have to stop doing as a society is saying that this is somebody else's kid or this is not my kid. 60% of families now have both parents working. And, as a working mom myself, my kids have a working dad. It's just, practically speaking, we have less time to investigate our kids and to be on top of what they're doing. And so that affords them an opportunity. That combined with some of the developmental phases of teenagers and the euphoric effect that kids may be reporting to other kids or are reporting to other kids. One kid described his use of an opioid prescription pill as being held in his mother's arms. And that's pretty enticing from one student to another. So we've really got to stop saying, this is not my child. The faces of heroin overdose and addiction and prescription pill overdose and addiction look just like me. They look just like you. They're very, middle and upper class and lower class. It runs the gamut. But remember the statistics, 78% are white middle class kids and white middle class males, but that doesn't exclude anyone else, and females are very vulnerable to this as well. So we've really got to take a look at what our kids are doing. We cannot be afraid to say, it's in my home, it's in my school, it's in my community, it's in my courtroom. And if we're going to really make a change and affect some change of this, we've all got to take a look at it together.
If you have information and you want to give it to us, there's ways to do it. You can leave your name or you can be totally anonymous. And either way, we try to track down the information you provide.
Pain from a mother's heart. I'm a heroin addict. No, I don't snort it, shoot it up, swallow it, smoke it, but I'm still an addict. You and your addiction, my child, has become my addiction. My high is trying to save you, make you see what you're doing is wrong. Every waking moment is spent thinking of ways to get you help. Every sleeping moment is thinking, where did I go wrong? My addiction has turned me into a thief. I have robbed your dad, sister, and brother of the attention and love they deserve. My addiction has taught me hate. It has made me isolate myself from friends and family. It's made me bitter and resentful. It makes me cry every day and every night. It's ruined my health, and my heart aches like no other pain. My addiction has made me not care about anything but saving you. It has made me so very tired not wanting to live anymore. Death has been my only thought and a way out. I've become a very good liar because of my addiction. My everyday hunger has been thinking of ways to get my child back, to fight this devil. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't want to be a heroin addict anymore. I'm tired of wasting my life away. I'm tired of missing out on the beauty that God blessed us with. I'm tired of being angry at the world, and I'm tired of fighting this addiction alone. I need to let you figure out how to get a hold of your addiction, how to deal with it, how to live with it. I will always need you. I will always love you. I will always be here for you, but from a distance. I can't let your addiction take me over any longer. My addiction has taken years off my life as it has yours, and the devil will not win with me. I choose to get clean and live. I wish you the best. I want the best in life for you. I want to see you happy, in love life, and love me. And until you're ready to be clean, you'll always be my baby.
Bring around roses, a pocket full of roses, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. You got to down, so we all fall down. It's Joe, Daddy, it's Joe. I don't know what game you guys want to play. What do you think of a game?